Hey guys, so in this video, let us learn how to set up GitHub Actions to deploy to perform Azure App Service Deployment. Right. So before we get started, quick introduction about myself. So my name is Swami. So I work as an architect at Maersk. I'm also a Microsoft MVP under Developer Technologies category. I tweet at @SP Swaminathan and I blog at swaminathanvetri.in. So the agenda of this short video is going to be, let's learn what are GitHub Actions and let's understand some of the concepts of the GitHub Actions, and then let's dive directly into setting up a CI for .NET Core app, and then we'll also see how to set up the CD to perform the Azure App Service deployment. Right. So to start with, so what are GitHub Actions? Right. So GitHub Actions are primarily the means to automate anything and everything within GitHub. Right. So it could be any kind of workflow which you want to automate. You can set up workflows so that your entire thing can be automated. So for example, if a particular project, if you want to set up an automated workflow for your code review process or pull request process, or even if you're maintaining an open source project and if you want to welcome some of the new contributors, right? So it could be anything, any event that happens on your GitHub repository, you can set up actions for those, and then you can automate those workflows. Right. So by now when we get into the concepts of GitHub Actions, so workflow is one of the most important things. So workflow is like the overall thing which covers what are the things we want to do on a specific under a specific event or so. Right. So what comprises a workflow is what is an action. Action is more like the portable component, right? You can create a lot of reusable actions, and then on all of these actions together will form an workflow. And when would the action would trigger is where the events could be like on pull request created, or on pushing code into the master branch or any branch for that matter, or on a new issue created. If you want to create an issue tracking workflow, right, you could use any of those as events. And what is an artifact, right? So artifacts are nothing but a typical build output or the deliverable which comes out of a particular build or any kind of an workflow. That's what is an artifact. Let's say if you are building an Node.js based application, right? If you want to create or the output of your application to be as an npm package, that could be one of the artifacts. If you are working on a .NET Core based application, so getting the DLLs out of your build process could be an artifact. Right. So and job, right? So you would specify these set of actions within a job, and job is what would be executed by a specific runner. So the runner is what is the next step which I would cover. So the jobs are something which is like a logical group of multiple actions, and these jobs can run either in sequence or in parallel. We have the luxury to utilize them in either ways. So so basically, if we get to the runner type, there are two types of runners which is available. So one is GitHub runner, that's more of the manage and the hosted runners. So you don't have to take the pain of managing under what runtime it is going to run. So your jobs could run on a VM or could run on Docker containers, and those are taken care of by the GitHub itself. And when it gets into self-hosted, we also have the option to attach some of the runners from our side, and then we can attach it into the GitHub so that all the workflows, whatever we create on a particular action, would run on this self-hosted runner. Right. And CI/CD is of course like the continuous integration, continuous deployment. So this is one part of the workflows, and which is one of the most important workflows for most of the developer ecosystem, right? If you are using an open source, if you're an open source contributor, or if you're running an open source project, so using GitHub Actions would be much straightforward to set up CI/CD for your application. So with that introduction, let's go ahead and get started with setting up CI for .NET Core application. So what I have done is I've created a basic Ledger server based .NET application, and I've committed into this particular GitHub repository. So as you can see here on top, so there's something called actions. So that's where we would go and start setting up our GitHub actions. So if you go, though in this example I've taken a .NET Core example, GitHub Actions are completely open source, and it supports all the programming languages, be it Python or Node or Go or Java, any kind of applications. You can, whatever is there in the GitHub, you can set up these actions to perform the workflow automation. So if you also have a static website, or so if you want to build based on the HTML pages or so, right, you can also use that in the actions too. Use that in the actions as well. And these are some of the popular continuous integration workflows what it already shows. So you can see that if you have the options to deploy the Node.js to Azure Web App or to AWS or GKE. So it's basically cloud agnostic, and it's not really tied to any kind of any kind of cloud or any kind of technologies. So it's more about it's all community driven. So all these workflows are really created by the community, and then you also can go ahead and create a workflow if you find there's nothing available, or if you can go yeah available for your need. Right, so if you just explore more, there must be something for .NET Core. Yeah, so I'm going to use this .NET Core. So it's also mentioned that these are the things what it is going to do. Right, so if I just click set up this workflow, it should start adding this particular file for me. Right, so basically how this GitHub action works. Right, so inside your repository, it will create a folder called .github, and under that it will create a workflows folder, and under that you can create this YAML file. So the entire workflow is defined in YAML format. Okay, and the name of the YAML file could be anything, and you can have multiple workflows created within a particular repository. It's not that you have to have only one workflow or so. Right, so here I would simply say maybe .NET Core build and deployment. I'll rename the thing, and so as you can see here, right, so this is where on push, basically this is the event on push of this particular code base on this branch's master, or on any pull request is created on this master branch. Right, we are going to run these jobs. In this basic example, there's only one job which is going to do the build, right, and it is going to run the build on Ubuntu latest VM. And what are the steps it is going to have as part of this job? Right, so that's where it's defined here. As you can see, this is what is most important, so action slash checkout v2. So this is one of the GitHub action which is trying to do checkout of this particular project. And then next step what we are trying to do is setting up the .NET Core. So, and that is being done by this particular action, which is action slash setup .NET at the v1. So we are using this particular action to set up the runtime of this SDK and the runtime for this particular workflow. So it says we are going to use this action with .NET version 3.1.101. Right, and now that the base is ready for us to work on, so these are the next set of activities or the tasks what it is going to run. So it will try to install the dependencies by running the .NET restore, and then it is going to build the application by .NET build and passing the configuration as release, and then it is going to also run the tests here. So just for simplicity, since I don't have tests, I'm going to just delete this one here, and you can just see a preview to see if everything is fine, and you should be good to commit this. Right. If you want to add more things to this particular action, we also have the options to go and search in the marketplace here. So whatever the ones by default it showed in the previous screen, it's all from the GitHub actions itself, right? And these are something which are like third-party actions, and then which would show up in the GitHub marketplace. As a first step, let's just simply go ahead and commit this to see if we are able to enable the CI for our application. So I'm going to commit this directly to the master. Okay, so once you commit the workflow, you can go ahead and click on these actions, and it will show all the workflows here. So this is the name what we have given, .NET Core build and deployment. Just click on that, and then you should be able to see the workflow running. So if you click on this, it will start showing the action, what are the actions it is running. So there is only one job with the name as build, so that's what is shown here. So these are the different steps, right? What is the setup job what we are doing, and then here is where it is running the actions. So depending on what are the actions defined in this workflow, if the first thing as part of setup, GitHub runner would really find the operating system and then the virtual environment where it needs to run, and it will also download the appropriate actions into the runner, and it will start executing the actions one by one. Yeah, so now it says the job is complete. So that means we've just set up a basic CI for our application using a GitHub Actions here. Right. Some more cool things what you could do is if you want to create a status badge for your build status, right, you could very well do that too. So it says the default branch. If I just go and select master, so you can say that the build is passing now, right? So you can just copy this status markdown here, and if you can also put this into a README file here. I believe I don't have a README. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and add a README file and just mention that like the build status of this. Yeah, and quickly let me preview. Come on. What happened? It should do a preview here. Oops, yeah, okay. There you go. So the build status, it says .NET Core build and deployment. So that's the workflow what we have run, and then it says it's passing. So let me go ahead and commit this file, and this should also trigger a new action, basically trigger our workflow. So yeah, create readme.md is what it is running now. All right. So that's how easily we can create or set up an CI for any kind of a project what you have. Like I said, in this example, I'm using a .NET Core application, and as you've seen in the the page when we created the workflow, it supports for all the different languages and then all the different frameworks what in whichever you want to have your application created. Okay, so now this is also complete. So and then now if you go back to your repository, you should be seeing that the build status is passing here, or whatever the appropriate status it is going to consider that. And as you can see, it's added these GitHub and the workflows folder, and it also has this YAML file. All right, so that's the first step. So now let's extend this particular action to see how we can deploy this application into an Azure App Service. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start editing this workflow. So I'm going to say view workflow file, and then you can go ahead and edit here. When you edit, it also brings up this one here, right? So what we are trying to do now is to deploy into Azure. So let's go ahead and see if there are any existing actions in the marketplace. So there's deploy to Azure Container Instance and Azure SQL deploy functions, action function, yeah, Azure Web App. So that's what I'm going to use now. So there are two options now. So once you select the particular action, you'll get the YAML settings for that particular action, and then you can copy and then you can put it here in this editor, and you can modify it, or you also have the option to work offline in your in your favorite editor, like VS Code or something like that. Right. So what I'm going to do now is, for simplicity, I am going to just copy this one, and I'm going to use VS Code so that it helps me in putting the indentation properly for the YAML files. So I am going to just do a git pull so that I get that workflow on the actions here, and I should be having that in my project. Okay, so yeah, so we've got that one, and now I am going to copy paste this entire thing for the deployment. Right, so what we're trying to do is this is the name of the action, and this is using this particular action defined by Azure / web apps deploy v2. So here are some of the parameters what we need to fill in so that the deployment would happen in the appropriate Azure App Service. So the app name, this is where we need to specify the application, the Azure App Service name. So yeah, as a prerequisite, we need to have an Azure subscription, and then we need to have an app service created there so that we can directly mention the name, and then you can use a published profile, and you can get your deployment started. So a couple of things what we would not use in this is a slot. It also has the option to do a deployment slot, so that enables your blue-green deployments or so. So in this demo we might not need it, so I'm going to just delete that part. And also the images, right, as it's mentioned here. So the images or the configuration file, startup command, all these are primarily essential if you are deploying as a Docker container, right? So in this case we are just going to do an zip-based deployment. So I'm going to remove all of these things. So yeah, so that's pretty much the settings what we need, but we still miss few things, right? So we need to specify the app names. Excuse me. Yeah, so as we specify the app name, let's learn how we can use environment variables to do that. So I've created these environment variables, right, to mention. So I'm just before we deploy, we need to really publish our application, which is currently not there. We're just doing only the build. So we need to publish it, and then we need to also mention like in which path we want to publish and which is the Azure Web App name. So I have created this Azure Web App, so I've just provided that name here. So before we modify that, let's go ahead and add the tasks to publish. Sorry, add the steps to publish. So I'm going to tell that okay, it's going to be publish, and then .NET publish with the configuration release, and this is how you would use the environment variable, right? So here env.publish path, this publish path is what is mentioned here. So I'm telling my workflow to publish my the output or the DLLs into the parent folder / publish folder, and we need to take the package again from that particular folder itself. So here again, the package location, we need to specify the same so that it's able to pick up the published one. And also the app name would be the env dot Azure Web App, right? So we still miss one more thing, right? So there are multiple ways in which you can deploy into the Azure App Service. So now the thing is using a published profile, which is what we are going to see now. There is also option to deploy it via the our service principal. So for this demo, we are going to look at how we can use a published profile, and then we can do the deployment. So the published profile is something which would be available in the Azure portal. So I'm going to go back to the Azure portal, and here if you go and get the published profile, if you click on this published profile button, so you would be able to download the published profile from there. And what you need to do is you need to add this as a secret. Obviously this contains sensitive information, right? So we can't really put it into in plain text there. So for that, GitHub Actions also has a good feature, right? So what I'm going to do now is, if you go to the settings of your project, if you go to settings, and then you would see something called secrets, and I'm going to do an add a new secret, right? So what I'm going to do is Azure Web App, Azure App Published Profile is the name what I'm going to do give, and I need to now take this publish profile and then put it there. So I'm going to copy this entire stuff, and then I'm going to put it here and then say add secret, right? So we've got this Azure published profile now. So you can, like, how we accessed our environment variables, there is an option to access the secrets as well. So if you go here, so we would say secrets dot that particular name, all right? So what we've done now in our in the existing YAML file is we've just added a couple of environment variables and saw how we can add the environment variables. And we also had added the secrets for the published profile, and we provided the application name and the package from where it needs to start deploying it. I hope the formatting and everything is fine. Okay. Okay, so I believe this has to come here, and I think the all should be good. So let's go ahead and commit this file. Let's quickly check the differences here. Yeah, we've added the environment variables for the publish path, and we've used that publish path for the .NET publish command. And we've also added the web app in which I need to deploy this particular application. And yeah, environment publish path / publish. Yeah, that's pretty much, I believe. Okay, so let's go ahead and commit this one. So I'm going to say enabled cd to Azure App Service Deployment. I'm going to commit this and push. Okay. To push some refs, it says. Okay, let me just do a pull first. Already up to date. Say git push. Okay. Okay, so currently there is a restriction that once after we add the GitHub workflows, right, we need to invalidate the existing token, and then we need to create our maybe sign out and sign in back to generate a new fresh token, and that would give the access to update into the or push into the repository. So for time being, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to copy this entire thing here, whatever we've added, and I'm going to add it into our repository directly. So I'll go here and go to actions. Oh, sorry, I could directly had gone there. It's okay. So view work file and say edit, and I'm gonna delete this and then put this back. Yeah, so it is not telling any issues, so I hope the indentation everything is fine. So now if you do a preview changes, yeah, it shows the differences as well here. And now we are good to go. So let's go ahead and commit this and see if it's able to, do the deployment for us. cd to deploy to Azure, commit directly into master, and let's go back and see what it does. So yeah, it already triggered the workflow. Let's give it a couple of minutes for this to complete. So yeah, it's doing the web app deployment now. So once the deployment is complete, we should also be able to, if it's successful, we should be able to get the get my website link, and then we should be able to browse through the application directly there. Okay, that's good. So if you open this, and this is what is the website address, so Blazor GA demo. So I'm gonna just browse that here, and there you go. Yeah, so that's the Blazor server app, which we just enable CI and CD via the GitHub Actions. So that's pretty much what we had. So like what you saw is it's how easy it is to set up the workflows in GitHub Action using GitHub Actions here. So if you have your applications or the projects running here in GitHub, you don't have to go and look for any other tool to set up the CI/CD. Like I mentioned, CI/CD is one part of it. It also have a lot of other options to you can enable the different workflows here. All right, thank you.